This table has 785,202 lines. And the table with the old code and the new code has 33 items. Next thing that we're going to do, we're going to bring these two tables to our Power Query editor. So I'm going to go inside any of these tables. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to select Get Data from Table Range. The Power Query editor opens, and here we have the same information, and we see that Power Query has created one more step for us. I'm going to press Ctrl+Shift+ to zoom in. It changed the data type from my column. I don't need that on my table. I have only one column on this table, so I don't need that. I'm going to delete it. I'm okay just keeping my source. This is what I need. I can go back to Excel, or I can just copy this query and change the name of the table that I'm bringing. In this case, I brought the table my long text. So I can select my query, right-click, and duplicate. I'm going to double-click here to rename it, and I'm going to call this dim codes. That's the name of that table. This doesn't bring the information from that table, but I just change the name just to identify which table I'm bringing. Okay. So here on the source, instead of selecting which table I'm bringing, so I'm going to say that I want to bring the dim codes table. Press Enter, and now we have the table with the old and the new. Perfect. Power Query changed the data type here for me, and it changed this as number. In this case, I don't want it like that, but because these numbers will become text inside of this text that I have on my previous query, my query, my long text. So those numbers are going to become part of this text. For that reason, I don't want this to be changed as number. I need this to be changed as text. If you don't change it, it will allow you to go to the whole process until a certain point where it's going to give you an error when you want to combine the text that we are going to transform. It's going to tell you that cannot convert numbers into text. For that reason, you need to transform it since now. So I'm going to go here to 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to select text. I'm going to replace the current information, and now it's text. And you can see text aligns to the left, numbers aligns to the right. So I'm going to change the name of the change type. Perfect. From here, I'm going to add a new step. I'm going to say equal, and I'm going to say list zip. I'm going to open parentheses, and it's going to ask me for the list. So if I go here on top of the function, it says lists as list. To tell Power Query that this is a list, we need to provide the curly brackets. So I open my curly brackets. I bring my table from the previous step. But remember that when we want to bring a column as a list from a table, we provide one set of square brackets. And that's going to be called old. I want to have a list of 2 items. The first item will be the old code. The new item is going to be the second item. Okay. The new code will be the second item. So I'm going to say, comma, the second list will be also from the change type table, but this time I want the second column, the column new. That's the one that is going to bring us the new text or the new code. Close the curly brackets to close that list and close the parentheses. And I'm going to press Enter. And now we have a list with 2 items, as I mentioned, the old code on the first line, the new code in the second line. Every single row has become a list, and that list has only 2 items. Perfect. Now that I have this, this is going to be my list that I'm going to transform with the List.Accumulate function. Remember, if I go to query 1, and actually, when you want to see the documentation and you don't want to go to the internet to check that documentation, I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to right-click, New Query, Other Sources, Blank Query. And I'm going to say equal List.Accumulate. I'm not going to put the parentheses. I'm just going to press Enter. And that's how you can bring the documentation as well. Remember that for this list, we need to provide our first parameter, list as list. The next parameter will be the seed. the next parameter will be the accumulator as function. Excellent. So I'm going to go back to my query, and I'm going to rename first documentation, just like that, so I know. I'm going to move this to the top. This is my query, the one that we are going to be working with. So from here, I'm going to add a column. I'm going to click at FX to add a new step. From there, I'm going to say equal. And from here, I'm going to say table add column. So I'm going to add one column to this table. Open parentheses. Which table do you want to add that column to? Okay, I want to add it to this table that I'm seeing here. That table is coming from my previous step, my step source, comma. What is the name of that column? I'm going to say final. And now it's asking me, what is the column generator as a function? What do you want me to process inside of that column? Well, and I need to provide that as a function. So remember that for Power Query, each is that keyword, or it's going to indicate that this is a function. So each, what I want to do, we're going to work with lets inside of this function. We have worked with nested lets already. So I'm going to say Shift Enter to go to the next row. Oh, and actually, I forgot to expand. So let's say Shift Enter to go to the next line. And I'm going to say let. Shift Enter to go down. And I'm going to provide my first variable. My first variable, let's say equal. I'll say text split. Open parentheses. Which text do I want to split? Well, the text that I want to split was in my only column that I had from that table, and that table and that column is called code. So inside of the parentheses, one square bracket, code, that's the name of the column, comma. What is the separator? What is going to indicate Power Query that the text needs to be split right there in that specific position. So what I want to use as a separator is the space, the pipe, and the space. And I need to provide this inside the quotation marks because this is a text, and that's it. Hit Enter. As I have a let, now I need to provide the closing, right, expression, which is in. So I open with let, I close with in, and here, Shift Enter. And what I want to be returned as value, I want the value of A. Let's see what happens there. And I'm going to press the check mark, and it's asking me that is, oh yeah, because I didn't close the parentheses for the table add column. I was missing one parenthesis. I'm going to press the check mark, and it's asking me, it's telling me that it's an error. Let me see what I did wrong. And code wasn't found. So, oh, it's because it's code with capital letters. I provided code with one capital letter and minúsculas, lowercase. Sorry, between Spanish and English. Anyways, code, C-O-D-E, and I press enter, and now the error is gone. Of course, the bar is still there, but now I don't have the error over here. When you want to get rid of this red bar, you just go to another step, go back to your last step, and the bar is gone. Perfect. Now I have the list, and now you can see that your text has been split. We don't have the pipe and the space anymore. We only have the text that was before that separator, in the middle of the separator, or after the separator. Okay, perfect. Now let's go back here to my formula bar, and let's start with the transformation. I'm going to say comma, Shift Enter. I'm going to say B equal. This variable is going to have the List.Accumulate transformation, the List.Accumulate function, so we can transform, we can replace the old code for the new code. So I'm going to say B, List.Accumulate, open parentheses. Which list? Which list is the one that we are going to use? We are going to accumulate here. Well, I need the list that is coming from my theme codes. Remember, we created a list with 2 items, every single list inside one list. So that's going to be the theme codes. Make sure that you type this correctly so you don't have the errors that I had last time. And now it's asking me for a seed. What is the starting point for this transformation? My starting point will be my code, my column code. That is the column that has the text that I want to transform. So in one square bracket, I'm gonna say code, comma, I need to provide the accumulator as a function. Remember that for this specific function, I need to provide that in parentheses, the goes to symbol, and inside of the parentheses, I need to provide two parameters. One is going to be the state, and one is going to be the current. You can name these parameters whatever you want, but you will need to have two parameters, and you need to make sure that you know what each parameter means. So for that reason, I always keep the same name, state and current. For me, it's very easy now to identify in each one. For that reason, S for state and C for current. And what is the operation that this function is going to perform? Well, what we need to do, we need to transform the list. So we are going to use list transform. Open parentheses, the list. Where is that list coming from? That list, oh, my seed is not going to be the column code, because the column code has been transformed in my variable A. So code, I'm going to delete this, and here is the value that is this list that I have here, because it's already split. Once I'm here, list transform, I need to start from a point. In this case, you will start with the first item, which is this list, transform list, but then later on, each value will be accumulated, and that will become the state. And now we need to provide the transform as a function. While we are going to transform, we want to replace the text. So we're going to say text replace, because we're going to replace the old code. Text replace here. And I'm going to open parentheses, which text we're going to replace. And with that one, I'm going to replace whatever is already in my list, the one that has the text split, comma. What is the old text? Well, remember that the old text will come from my dim codes. So I have a parameter here already. So I need that parameter goes over there and brings me the old code, which is in the first line of every single list, right? So those nested lists have only two items. The first item is the old code. The second item is the new code. So I need that this function goes there to dim codes, the current. That's why we told Power Query here that we have our list. So it will go there, and then it will bring the first item. Power Query is base 0, so the first item is location 0, let's say. That will be our old text. Our new text will be the item that is in position 1, which is row 2. Now I don't want to resolve from the variable E. Now I want that this brings me the result or the value from my variable B. I said check mark, and it gave me an error. It's because I forgot the each. So each, I always miss the each. So I'm going to press check mark, and now the error is gone. Now I have my list. When you see here, now I have the new code instead of the old code. I still have those characters, and that is very important because there are other solutions that it must be exactly the same text, otherwise it won't replace it. But what about when we have text and we have a comma after a specific word, and we need that word to be replaced? With this technique, you can replace that, and that's what I like and why this technique is very powerful. However, you need to be very careful because there will be times when you have text that should not be replaced, and that's what happens with this technique. For example, here, I have Jorge, and the next line has Jorge. So in this case, Jorge was replaced correctly, but when we have Jorge, because it has the first three characters, then it will replace Jorge and keep the end, which is GE as well. Okay, just be aware of that. I hope you find it useful. For me, this technique is extremely useful.